more on this from William Lawrence. He's a professor of political science and international affairs at George Washington University. Great to have you back with us, William. So Libya's UN-backed government is saying that they've essentially suspended ceasefire talks. Again, this all follows this attack on this weapons depot. Where are we at right now?
Well, I just got off the phone with the Tripoli on the way into from several members involved in the Geneva process, and their position is basically you can't have ceasefire talks or truce talks or peace talks if you're being bombed. And yesterday the airport was hit. Today the gas facility was hit. They were quite unhappy that the American ambassador was meeting with Haftar yesterday or today in Benghazi, while the Algerian new president was visiting Tripoli, and the American was saying, well, it's not safe enough for me to go to Tripoli, which doesn't make much sense given that the whoever needs to have meetings in Tripoli has them. So this will suspend the talks. I don't think they'll be suspended for too long, but the larger issue is, what are we doing here? If there's no ceasefire, how can you have substantive talks that mean anything if you're bombing the other side? So I think the other big issue right now is European countries are talking about a sea blockade, which really only affects Turkish help, but no air blockade, which is where most of the arms are coming in to help Haftar. So there's an imbalance in terms of the visits, there's an imbalance in terms of the arms supplies, and a lot of that will have to be worked out before we're going to have any progress in Geneva, even if there are meetings going on.
How are the international backers of Haftar's forces and separately the UN-backed government, how is that impacting the power dynamics on the ground right now?
Very much so. In fact, what got us to the situation we're in right now was a huge increase of support for Haftar going back to September, and you and I have spoken about that in the past, and there's substantial new numbers of Sudanese mercenaries, 3,000, 1,000 Russian-trained mercenaries, and most importantly, I think, in terms of the international backers and the tipping of the balance, new drones and air support from the UAE. That's made it look to, let's say, a lot of residents of Tripoli that the fall of the city might be imminent. Now, the military experts never said that, but it really had a sort of demoralizing effect. The mobilization of Turkish assistance, as Assistant Secretary Schenker said in his Senate testimony last Wednesday, paradoxically tipped the balance back towards parity, back towards peace. So actually, the Turkish support, which was so criticized as being something that would destabilize things, actually got us to the Berlin process and the Geneva talks in a way that made it possible, and actually had a big sort of morale boosting effect on the population of Tripoli. However, the substance of those talks can't go anywhere if the violations of the arms embargo are so flagrant, and if bombing is going on. You know, bombing an airport is a violation of international law. It's a very serious one with all the humanitarian assistance, and this can't really be happening if you want to have substantive talks.
So where do things go from here?
There are many silver bullets being proposed by many. I've been saying that the most useful thing right now would be to convince the Emirates to ground their drones and their planes for a little bit of time. And then go to the Turkish government and say, look, they're going to ground their drones and their planes. How about if you reduce a little bit the number of Syrian mercenaries you're sending, the arms you're sending? I think that would start a conversation. I've been asking a lot of international law experts, you know, can you embargo a country into military defeat? You know, under the UN Charter, you have the right to defend yourself. So, you know, at what point can you say, look, the Western government has the right to defend itself, to defend Tripoli? And the answer I get is the Western government hasn't gone to the UN Security Council yet. Now, they need to do that. And the latest resolution affirming the Berlin communique, the 55 points that were negotiated in Berlin, that was passed 14-0 in the Security Council with Russia abstaining. That's very important because now we have an international framework to move things forward. We have talks that are faltering in Geneva but possible. And so things can move forward diplomatically if enough bilateral pressure under UN Security Council frameworks is applied to the countries that are trying to tip the balance in favor of the Eastern government.
You bring up a lot of great points there, and certainly, as you mentioned, those confidence building measures would certainly be the key to getting things back on track here. William Lawrence, really appreciate your analysis. Thanks for being with us.
A pleasure.